In 3, 2, 1, go. So this is Zelda 2, 80% no scroll lock. We start with the sword, sorry guys, but we're not going to get the boomerang or the hook shot or the bottles or any of that kind of stuff. We're going to get a hammer though, but we're going to start off with a double frame perfect trick that while I concentrate on it, the guys on the couch will tell you what I'm doing.
So yeah, by talking to the healer lady here on two specific frames, 1/60th of a second window, we're going to cause a race condition in what she does. Basically, she's going to try to do two things at the same time. Turn around, fly up into space, and go away.
Second try, very nice.
Yes, very fast. So we're now in Glitch Town, which is a map that actually doesn't exist anywhere in the game. This is probably just garbage memory, not sure. And so we warp past the hammer boundary. Get past the boulder. So now we can actually get the hammer. We're skipping the hammer to get the hammer because it's just much faster that way. And if this looks slow killing these enemies, it's because we need attack 3 experience as soon as possible. And in a marathon, you have to be safe, so you have to avoid requiring luck to get that experience.
So this is one of the most dangerous parts of the run because I'm so weak. So I'm going to go pick up this extra life. This is a Zelda game with extra lives and experience points and all that good stuff. Quite a bit different than most Zelda games. So.
Yeah, and this bridge air is on right now. Normally, you would be at about level 5 in attack and the rest of your stats as well. So going through here at your bare minimum levels is extremely difficult.
So I just picked up an attack level. Attack levels are really important at the beginning of the game. It lets me do more damage, lets me kill bosses quicker, lets me kill enemies quicker. I'm doing a technique to jump over these guys. The game cheats a little bit in how some of these enemies chase you around the screen. It actually reads your D-pad movements, but you don't actually lose momentum while jumping. So I take my hand off the D-pad when I'm jumping over them, and it prevents the enemies from backing off. So this screen is dark, but there's enemies on it. Normally you would have the candle at this part, but we don't have that yet. Probably not going to get it. But it's probably hard to see on stream and in the stream room, but the enemy sprites clip into the floor just a little bit. And for some reason you can see orange enemies.
Yeah, we think that's because they use the same palette as the items such as the trophy and the medicine and such that appear in the caves that are meant for you to see in the dark. We think that's what it is.
Yeah. And it just never mattered because they never imagined anyone would be crazy enough to get this far without the candle.
Right, you'd have to get pretty far into Death Mountain before you ever saw an enemy that would be colored that way.
So yes, this is the Hammer Cave. We're almost there to the hammer.
Nice raccoons.
So coming up is a drop. There's a drop counter based on the number of enemies you kill and the type of enemies. I'm hoping for a specific drop called a P bag or points bag. That'll allow me to, and I actually got it, that'll allow me to skip a couple of enemies that I would normally have a backup to kill. So coming up is the hammer. One of the required items to beat the game. After that, we're going to do what's called up A. And that's basically forcing a game over. We're going to leave Death Mountain, go back to the beginning of the game.
Do that by pressing up A on the second controller while the game is paused.
And as you can see, file name incentive, you're going to see Lunk a whole bunch of times.
One nice side effect of up A is that when you restart like that, the random number generator resets back to the beginning position. So those overworld encounters will do the same thing every time, as long as you get to there the same way every time. And so we end up, thanks to Feasel rerouting the game, we were able to find a lot of ways to make good use of that.
And I have to thank Arctic Eagle for coming up with a lot of that really clever stuff. Other thing that you get is all your lives back and all your health and all your magic back. That's very helpful. Makes this a very safe category and pretty reasonable to skip the life spell in any category that has up A. You do lose your experience. Any experience that hasn't been spent on a level is gone.
So right now we're doing a whole bunch of fetch quest stuff because I need a few spells to beat the game. And so what I just picked up in that one dark cave is a trophy. which is required to get the jump spell. And I'll be doing a couple more just fetch quests like that. So if you have any donations to read, now's a good time.
Sure do. $25 from Central Blues. Gotta donate again to one of my favorite Zelda games. Error, you are a real hero. $25 from Anonymous, who says, good lunk.
So we picked up the hammer in Death Mountain, and it does two things. It can chop down trees, and it can break boulders. Why a hammer can chop down trees is beyond me, but it's a good question. So since the RNG starts at the same time every time I up A, there's many encounter manipulations. The encounters on the world map there's two different counters. There's a time counter and then there's a step counter. So starting at 3 seconds, and then every 8 seconds after that, a random encounter will spawn if I'm not on a road tile. And an encounter will spawn every 16 steps if I'm not on a road tile either. So I try and manipulate my steps to avoid as many encounters as possible.
And it looks like the enemy's movement is sporadic and random on the overworld, but they actually follow a pretty fixed set of rules. We can kind of get the spawns where we want and then sidestep them, knowing how they react to Link's position in relation to theirs.
Yeah, there's a really interesting picture you could probably find by Googling that shows a vector field that determines which way the monsters move based on where they are relative to Link.
But the nice thing is with this up A route, we can get really favorable patterns that just happen to run away from Link instead of toward Link. So we skip a lot of that time-sinking overworld enemies. And this is Mido Town, where we're going to get the most powerful sword technique in the game, the down stab. I'm told it's strong in Smash Brothers, and it's even stronger in this game.
It's the second worst sword technique.
You think Link's a smart guy. If you stick your sword underneath you to stab enemies below you, what happens if you stick your sword above you? And
He needs a hint.
so there's one other item in this, or one spell in this town we're going to get. We picked up the medicine from the last dark cave we were in to give to this old lady to heal her sick child, and we're about to pick up the most broken spell in the game, which is the fairy spell, which turns Link into a fairy. Lunk into a fairy, I bet.
Normally when Link moves around, he's got momentum. He takes some time to speed up, takes some time to slow down. But Fairy doesn't have any momentum, doesn't take any time to accelerate, just instantly moves in the direction you press with full speed. And that ends up breaking the game in several different ways, depending on how you use it. Most importantly, you can ferry through a door without a key.
And you can pick up items without an item pickup animation, which is why he doesn't do this earlier.
But I can't actually cast fairy without the item in this game,
That's true.
which is a magic container. So we finally finished all of our fetch questing, and now we can go start doing palaces, which are the dungeons of the game. Most players that have done this would normally do what we would call Palace 1 first, which is in the northeast corner of this continent. We're not going to do that. We're going to go do Palace 2 first, because we still need some experience from kills, and there's not a lot of enemies in Palace 1, but there's a ton of enemies in Palace 2. Help us get some more experience to increase our attack level, kill bosses faster.
That double back you did on the road there, that was an intentional manipulation, preventing an entire spawn of overworld enemies by staying on the road just a little bit longer when that timer was going to hit.
Yeah, he had to make a decision right before going into the palace. It didn't work out in his favor. There was an enemy in his way, so he did have to go back and take a path encounter.
So this is fairy spell. Don't have a key, doesn't matter.
We don't like to go out of our way to get keys. It's just such a pain.
Lucky's fine to get those in a way.
Best room in the game. Any combination of bots and lava is going to give you some real trouble.
So this is our first Iron Knuckle. Gave me trouble as a kid, but just so happens you could just hit them in the visor a whole bunch of times and they die. That statue head has a guaranteed drop. Palaces 1, 2, and 5, all of those locations that can have a drop will always be a red jar, which completely refills my magic. In other palaces, palaces 3, 4, and 6, it has a 50-50 shot of being a red jar or an enemy. Those blocks are completely random. If I get extremely unlucky, it could block me in and basically trap me to where I have no way of getting out and have to die.
Because you have to get past them to get the item that lets you break blocks, the handy glove right here. And there, he didn't hold up the item. The fairy just saves you time in so many ways. And that's not even the biggest save yet. That will come later.
So coming up on another 6-count drop. 50-50 shot of getting a red jar or a points bag, and I'm hoping for the points bag in this case, so I don't have to kill as many enemies. Got a red jar instead, that's okay. You may see me when going down elevators, you may see me slash the wall. It gives me a little bit of it to push me towards the direction I want to go. I can't normally walk while going down an elevator, so I slash the wall to push me in the direction I want to go.
This room is difficult and very just painful to have to fight those enemies, which can downstab you at any time.
Yeah, this is what he would have skipped probably if he had gotten the P bag.
Yeah, that's exactly why you want that lucky drop there. Making our way to the boss of Palace 2 here. Still need a few hundred experience for attack 4.
So we got another drop coming up. I hope it's a points bag. Never lucky. That's okay, we'll clear out the palace of basically every single enemy. That's fine.
They brought it on themselves. They only had themselves to blame.
Ouch.
1 HP strats.
It wouldn't be a Zelda without beef strats. Skeleton wanted some.
So we do need this extra attack level, so we have to back up, kill these enemies.
So most of these Iron Knuckles, if you get on top of them quickly, they don't have enough time to react. It takes a little bit for them to actually wake up. This is Helmet Head. I'm going to take him kind of safe. He was a jerk and walked off screen on me, so we'll just down stab him on the side of the screen.
What he did there at the end was a jackhammer. He actually got on top of the enemy and just mashed down on the D-pad. Every time you push down on the D-pad while you're in the air, it counts as another attack with the sword. So you can just mash down and just hit him again and again and finish off the battle.
So you may notice I was at 228 out of 2,000 experience points. When you finish a palace and place the gem, you immediately get enough experience to go to the next level. And you may have noticed that I've been skipping life and magic levels. And that's because I want as big a bonus for the end of the gym as possible. In this case, around 2,000 points. So now we're on our way to actually do Palace 1.
And because of reversing the order of Palace 1 and Palace 2, now the Palace 1 gem bonus is just going to be enormous. Palace 1 is fairly straightforward. Isn't really a bad time for some donations.
Sure. $150 from Hellfree. Good Lunk Save Zelda. $150 from Sir George. I stayed up late to watch Air 72's run. He decides where this goes.
Go Shorty.
$30 from Anonymous. Hey guys, first time donor, many time viewer. I started playing Zelda 2 as soon as I could play video games. And after many year-long breaks out of Rage, I finally finished it earlier this week. It was the first time I remember playing, and I knew I had to donate to the Zelda 2 run. Glad to donate to such a great charity as Doctors Without Borders and watch video games at the same time.
So you may notice I'm one-shotting all of the enemies. That's because Attack 5 is seriously overpowered for this section of the game. Another 6 count coming up. I'm hoping for a red jar here. Never lucky. But it's okay. We got a magic refill coming up this next screen.
Yeah, because he didn't get the jar drop, he's going to take an intentional death, which will refill his magic, allow him to continue on.
Yeah. Most people don't know that the hammers will refill your magic like that if you just walk into them enough. The lava does that too.
So this is Horsehead. Got to hit him in the ears 4 times with Attack 5. And I pushed him off screen.
He's afraid. He had to run and hide.
Wouldn't be a Zelda without beef strats.
It would take a good long time to grind up 2,500 experience points, and we're just going to get that for free from the gem here.
And while we're waiting for that, got time for a couple donations?
Sure. $1,000 from Matthew. Been watching. Been watching this event for years, but have never been able to donate. After saving for a little while, I think I can send some change your way. Cheers. P.S. Kill those animals.
All right, so we're on our way to Palace 3, the Island Palace. Error of Rutotan will tell you how to get there if you don't know how, but Error's right here, so he knows the way.
And what Eric did right there with the block was a little bit of an encounter manipulation. He waited for a specific audio cue to break the block on, and that guaranteed him to get a back spawn and be able to get to the King's Tomb encounter free.
Thanks, Fiesel.
Yeah, thanks, Fiesel.
Oh, did I make that up?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We think you did. If it's someone else, we'll only give someone else the credit.
I don't remember anyone else doing it.
So now we're in Palace 3, the Island Palace. The first palace we get to see, and just demonstrated there that, you know, statues can be either 50-50 red jar or enemy. So I'm going to level up my magic and life a couple of times in this palace. You may have noticed my magic was completely empty, and then I leveled up magic, and now I have full magic. So that's going to get used a couple of times during the run to refill my magic at key points.
Jumping over the first of those orange guys there actually despawn one of the little spike guys, the Muse. Just one of those tiny manipulations that if you don't know it's there, you don't know how much easier you're making it on yourself.
So one of the few keys we actually grab in the run. Most cases we just ferry through the doors.
Yeah, the way this game is designed, you're meant to be going room to room to room, finding key after key after key. They put keys in so many dead ends, so being able to skip the keys is a gigantic time save. Oh. The skeletons are easily one of the most annoying enemies in the game.
So I have to set a reminder for myself for the next room. Do not pick up the key. Do not pick up the key.
If you have the key and you try to ferry through a door, it will use the key instead of letting you ferry through it, so that would be a waste.
So then we have to go to one of those dead ends we were talking about.
So we're at the item room here, and we meet our first blue iron knuckle, and now he's gone.
That was the jackhammer technique again. There's no limit to how fast you can hit enemies if you just mash down. I mean, you can 30 times a second you can do it.
And the reason for that is your normal stab attacks have a couple frames of animation, whereas the jackhammer is just one static frame that is pretty much playing whenever you're pressing down on the D-pad. So by mashing it, it's refreshing the hitbox every time you mash down. Wow.
My corner glitched back up. That was crazy.
This is
Yeah.
fine. Everything's fine.
Totally intentional.
Bots, they can jump at any time. They can change direction at any time.
Most unpredictable enemies in the game by far.
And the designers did a very good job of putting them in rooms with lava, a lot. It was just subtly very good game design in that.
So the item we picked up was Draft. It allows us to reach Eastern Hyrule. And normally I try and find a magic pixel to fly over this enemy called the Doom Knocker. But I don't think I'd survive a hit if I missed it, so I'm just going to wait for him to get out of the way. Another 6 count coming up. This time I'm hoping for a points bag. Never lucky.
I think we're up to 5 or 6 wrong drops so far.
I got the most important one at Death Mountain, so I guess I'll be happy.
The nice thing about that is you get a blue iron knuckle, which is basically equivalent to it because it doesn't increment your 6 count.
Boss time.
So this is Rebonak. He's a blue iron knuckle on a horse. And we're going to bounce on his head a bunch of times. And he gives, as advertised, 301 experience points.
That's right. All the enemies that say they're worth 300 are actually worth 301.
Because for some reason, when they brought this game out of Japan, they went and changed up a bunch of the experience values of the enemies. And when they changed that one from 200 to 300, they typoed it.
So you got time for a couple of donations.
Sure. $25 from Makeva. Awesome job, everyone. Way to go. Glad I caught the Zelda 2 run this year. $25 from Kitty Ray. Took the whole week off to watch the event with my girlfriend, and we've been having a great time doing nothing but watching and playing games. Shoutouts to Era for making me look bad, since Zelda 2 is the only Zelda game I never beat. Don't die to Thunderbird.
I can pretty much guarantee that.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. You'll see.
So I missed the audio cue there, but that's okay. Might end up with a couple of extra encounters here, but this shouldn't be any problem to get to make it to where I need to go.
2 clean dodges.
So another dark cave. One of the few places Beam Sword is useful is we can use it to cover our heads just in case the Aikman, which are the dragon bats, decide to swoop down on my head. And as far as overworld encounters go, fairies are the most randomly moving encounters on the overworld. And normally, in a casual run, you'd want to see them, but in a speed run, you can't manipulate them at all. They're completely random. So,
As it turns out, most enemies, if you're one tile above or below them, they will actually try to move left or right. So you can use that to your advantage and just like sometimes walk all the way across a continent with one right below you. But fairies, nope. They try to help you, and that hurts the speed run.
so we're on Maze Island now, and we just rescued the kidnapped kid. And we need him for a required spell called the Reflect spell, because the next boss can't be defeated without it. There's a problem with actually getting it right now, though, is that you need as many magic containers as the slot where the spell is located. So Reflect is in slot 6. At the time we picked up the kid, we only had 5 magic containers. So if I had gone to Darunia, which is the town where you get Reflect, the wizard would have told me that I'm not ready for it. And we're going to attempt our first glitch for why this category exists, and it's called Fairy Feet.
And basically what Error did there is he transformed into a fairy, and he did a series of one-frame taps, which put him past the actual screen transition boundary, but not off of the screen completely. allowing him to hit the transition trigger from the wrong side and essentially just skip the whole forced encounter.
Yeah. The game's programming is lazy. They don't actually check what exit you left from to know where to put you on the overworld. They just look which direction you were moving. So by going through the exit from in the wrong direction, they thought he exited on the other side of the screen.
And it only works in the overworld. It doesn't work in palaces like this. Otherwise, I'd probably be using it a lot more often
yeah.
here.
So while we're here, because we got the magic container, we might as well get the item here, which are the water walking boots.
Yes, and these will save him time walking to the town to get the reflex spell and also walking back to the dungeon itself.
This palace is very neatly split in half. The boots are on one side, the boss is on the other. So getting the boots and doing an up A saves a good amount of backtracking.
So we got a little bit of a backtrack ahead of us, so if you have a couple of donations.
Sure do. David Pittman donates $50, says, gotta donate during a great run of one of my favorite childhood games, Zelda 2 Best Zelda. $50 from Dupid245, who needs sleep when Zelda's on? $25 from David TKI, what would you get if the King of Evil were smaller? Ganon Dwarf.
Boo.
Just as bad as the potato puns.
I kind of hate myself for laughing at that.
So this
I
time,
liked it.
Error did get the manipulation this time, breaking the boulder at just the right part in the song. So that's why a lot of this has been pretty easygoing in the overworld.
All right, so he's
So what happened there is that you're normally supposed to walk onto that square, and then you have this lengthy encounter with water pits and everything. But if you get a random overworld encounter as you walk onto that tile, the random overworld encounter takes priority, and those are much shorter. They need another fairy feet, and now we're in Darunia Town. Some of these names may sound familiar to
Nice.
Nintendo 64 fans.
So there's a couple of things in this town. One of them is upstab. You have to go down that chimney in the house I just jumped on. I just did that for swag.
yeah, that was actually a one-frame jump that he made up onto the roof.
Just for fun.
Had this been a run where it actually mattered, it would have probably taken about 12 tries, because that's how that trick goes.
Except you can ferry down the chimney. If you were ducking, if you cast a fairy spell.
Which is actually something we recently found out, I'd say within the past year maybe.
Yeah. With the Zelda 2 randomizer out there, there's a lot of new runners coming into the game and finding all these glitches, playing the randomizer, and which is why this category exists. Because we want to use all those fun new glitches.
So you may have seen me swap back to the fairy spell. Every time you cast a spell, you have to open the menu to cast another spell. That keeps you from accidentally casting the same spell again.
And just blowing all your magic for no benefit.
So this is showing off what the boots do. Be the one time you hear the overworld loop, so enjoy it. Pick up another one up here. We might need it later. And because we have a boots, we can take a shortcut to the palace instead of having to do the maze again.
This is a really weird order for Palace 4. Most Zelda runs won't do this, but because no scroll lock skips some magic containers, the requirement to get reflect, Error has to do this in a very weird order.
True, and having up A, the boots are so far out of the way because this dungeon is divided in half with the item on one side and the boss on the other, that in most of the categories it can pay off to just up A after getting the boots.
Getting that key, you're supposed to have upstab, but if you cast jump and jump into the block, you can clip just enough into the block to be able to stab it with an ordinary side stab.
Oh, I fell in the lava. But I needed it to Refill
Nice
my
hot
magic.
bath.
Cleanses the soul.
And we know this game wounds Error's soul so many times.
So as I said earlier, we needed the reflect spell to beat the boss. So we're about at the boss, and it requires intense concentration to do. So need to be a little bit quiet for the next room.
Karok.
All right, serious.
So how you
time.
guys doing back there? I am getting the worst pattern ever.
Yeah, this is the best strat. That's the only thing you can do.
So, Carrick's teleporting is effectively random. So, you could theoretically learn each individual pattern, but no one wants to take the time to do that. So, basically, you just sit in the corner and let him kill himself. And that may have been the worst fight I ever had that didn't die. So notably, we didn't actually up A out of this palace. I'm going to try not to up A again to reset my lives, except in one very specific point. So we're on our way to the Ocean Palace. In Palace 5, we'll use my big bonus of experience to give me some life levels so I don't die so easily, since I don't have basically any of the safeties of the run. I don't have the shield spell, which increases my defense. I don't have the life spell, which restores my life. I haven't picked up any extra heart containers.
And right now you're supposed to have 7 hearts, not 4.
So my apologies to all of the Zelda 2 all keys runners. We're not doing the eco key. There's a damage boost strat for picking up that key without having to cast fairy, and it saves a whole bunch of time because keys are one of the items you actually can't pick up with the fairy spell. You have to hit them with your sword, and you can't use your sword as a fairy. So,
But we don't need that key, so we don't have to take that risk. Here's where that high magic level, Magic 6, is really doing some work. It reduces fairy spell to its lowest possible cost, so we can just use it freely. And just pick up red jars in the palaces where we know where they are. Like in the very next room.
so this key is too far out of the way. We don't have time to pick that one up.
We're lazy.
You got a jump spell for it. So Palace 5 is one of the palaces where all of the drops are guaranteed to be red jars from their statue locations.
The enemies in this palace are a bit random and very punishing if you get unlucky enough. So those orange disappearing and reappearing Magos, serious business.
But they also give you a lot of experience and don't mess up your 6 count.
That's about as out of the way as we ever want to go for a key.
That was almost too far.
It's too far, really.
Seriously, there are dead ends all over the place that it would like double the length of the run to show all of them. And most of them have keys.
All right, let's see if he gets the frame perfect trick. He got it.
That wall clip there.
Don't let my couch fool you. That wall's fake. There's even a hint for it.
But we're in the wall. You can see it.
Okay, it's not frame perfect. It's a 2-frame window.
Yeah, you have to hold right when you're standing next to the wall, and then you'll walk into the wall.
You have to jump too.
Oh.
So I'm grabbing that jar for safety. If I play ideally, I don't need it. But there's one enemy in this palace that are called skull bubbles. And when they damage you, they don't only lower your life, they also take away some of your magic. And I don't want to die in this palace. And I have to backtrack a little bit to reach the boss after picking up the flute, or the plunger, whatever you want to call it. And if I get hit by one of those skull bubbles, I can't cast a required fairy spell. So I pick up that jar for safety. Only takes a couple of seconds to pick up.
Because he would have casted 2 fairies casts in 1 jump, which is just about his entire magic allotment. Not enough room left for the bubble to take any. And that jar is right in the way, so we might as well get it. There is a route through this palace that lets you avoid this backtrack, kill the boss first, but Air doesn't want to up A, so it actually takes the same amount of time. It just, you backtrack in different ways, basically.
So we're almost to the boss, and this is the most dangerous enemy in the game. Boss is called Guma, and he's got a big mace and it hurts. And his head is covered, so I can bounce on his head, but I can't actually damage him from above. So I have a very tight window to actually hurt him. So this fight is slower with the jump spell, but I'm going to cast it for safety to give myself the best window for avoiding this mace.
And that mace, the sprite is big. It will hit you. It seems like it's even bigger than that. So nice clean fight.
Missed the key. Reset. So I forgot to do this in Palace 4, but time still continues on while the fanfare of placing the gem happens, so I actually select the next spell I want to cast at that, while the gem is rising up and the fanfare is playing, to save maybe half a second or so. So with a fine plunger, we're going to flush this river devil down the river. And he's gone. I'm going to try and get a encounter
nice.
skip, which
Nice fence skip.
cooperated.
That's why he ducked into that cave, set up the timing for that.
Yeah, he took that random encounter on a square where a forced encounter would normally be in and allowed him to skip it.
These fence encounters. You're supposed to do 3, but he skipped that first one.
Yeah, these are pretty nasty. You're almost guaranteed to take damage in them. So it's best to try to skip as many of them as you can.
So 1 encounter skip, 1 fairy feat, and they only actually had to run under 1 set of rock throwers.
And so I don't think it's pretty common for routes to go this way. Normally you would go up to the hidden town next, but he doesn't need to go there because he doesn't need the magic jar or the spell or the any key.
Yeah, playing casually, you would normally want to get all the spells, and to get all the spells, you have to get all the magic containers. But we're skipping 1 magic container, which means we actually now can't get the thunder spell.
So skipping, those 2 screens with fairy means that I actually needed to hit my 50-50 for a jar. And I got a Iron Knuckle first time, so I could have been told much, much worse. Because if I get a Iron Knuckle from the statue, I have to leave and come back and try for another jar.
And note that door at the entrance. There are no keys in Palace 6. None at all. You
That's
are
not true.
normally, well, except
There's
for the
2.
bosses. But
3.
except for the bosses. You're killing me. So yeah, you're normally required to get the magic key, but we're just going to ferry through everything. Except for the boss doors.
I was trying to go for ceiling walk there. Basically, if I time my fall just right and clip under the floor, I'll actually end up on the ceiling of that room. But I missed it, so I had to ferry through a door, and am now out of magic.
We know what that means.
I've got to borrow magic now. Blue jars, they're the 6 count for the small enemies. They happen 7 out of 8 times. Restores 1 bar of magic. That's not quite enough for what we need. So we're going to take a little dip in the lava here and restore our magic.
In this game, red potion gives you a magic refill.
So 1 of 2 required fairy casts in the palace. No other way to get by the screen. Although I'd be impressed if you could somehow bounce off of all the bubbles to do it.
We need to find some intrepid tasser to try that.
So this palace throws a little wrinkle and decides to give you a boss refight. And so we have Rebonak again. And I actually didn't move far enough to the right, so we're actually going to have to real fight him.
And that's dangerous because if you push him too far off screen as you kill him, the key will not drop, and then you have to up A to get out.
Yeah, the reason why there's keys, even though there aren't any doors after this and keys aren't needed anymore once you have the any key, is that there's really no way to unlock the screen. That's the way they built it. When you fight a boss or a mini boss, the screen stops, you hit the key, and then the screen starts moving again. So they give you keys unnecessarily. Same thing at Thunderbird.
So normally I wouldn't come over here on this screen, but there's an extra life over here. And the next section of the game is super dangerous. So I'm going to grab this for safety. You'll see why in about 2 or 3 minutes.
Link finding dolls of himself scattered throughout Hyrule, where he happens to be going. Is someone sending him a message?
All right, once he enters the screen, he's going to continue moving. He can't stop moving because otherwise he won't know where Barba is going to spawn.
Almost 1 hit away.
Attack 6. Jackhammer.
2 hits away.
2 hits.
Very tough.
You told me he was 1 hit away. That's all your fault.
Yeah, after that first cycle, he doesn't know where Barba's going to appear.
And that's the last of the 6 gems needed to be placed to unlock the Great Palace, guarding the Triforce of Courage.
So you may have noticed that when I loaded the game to start off with, that I had 2 save files called soft lock insurance. There's actually a way to soft lock the game. And that is by leveling up on the same frame that you leave a screen at. And basically, the game enters a state where it's expecting you to select the level up, but it's on a black screen transition. And you won't be able to do any inputs. You can't even up A from it, which would be you would lose all progress. So I set up a couple of save files to prevent that.
So this is toughest part of the run right here.
He's going to do an overflow cast of Fairy. Oh, nice. Really nice.
Oh, I can't see the edge of the screen.
This is the Valley of Death. The encounters spawn very close. They spawn very fast. And they have invisible flying enemies that come at you.
That luck, that was amazing.
Yeah, but
Skill.
we can't
Skill.
actually see the hard part here because he keeps dodging all the encounters.
You guys have no idea. He's killing it.
So this would normally be the room I'd be most likely to die, and still might. This room is full of invisible enemies, even if I could see, because I did not pick up the item in Palace 6, which is the cross. But it's dark anyway, so.
There's really not much you can do about that room, but just keep holding forward and hope that the enemy's flying away where they don't just wreck you by the end of the room.
Scorpion Max taking a toll there.
I got sniped by an enemy there, and I couldn't cast Fairy to save myself. But that's okay, we got extra lives.
And fortunately, once you get to the Great Palace, you can up A, and you'll start from the Great Palace. That's the only place in the game where you don't start back at the normal starting location.
Yes, and the reason for that is this game was originally released in Japan for the Famicom Disk System, which used floppy disks to store the game, and all of the game is on side A.
Side B.
Side B, while the Great Palace and the file select screen are on side A. So when you enter the Great Palace, it has you flip the disc over, and they probably had an up A or a game over restart you at the entrance of the palace, so you didn't have to constantly keep flipping sides every time you game over.
So this is a great palace. Every single one of these enemies is super hard, and they all have nicknames. Like that one guy I just passed, what we call a spicy chicken. And the reason why they all have nicknames is the proper Japanese name could potentially be not PG.
Yeah, definitely can't say it on
It just sounds like something very different in English.
So by all means, you can look it up if you want, but I don't want to be banned from the event, so. You probably got time for a couple of donations while I make my way through this palace.
Sure, $25 from Anonymous says, "Hello, fellow Zelda 2 runners. This is Cantaloupe. Glad to see the whole gang there on stage and back couch. Error, if you knew Bagu, that would be swell. Plus, why do you not have the fire spell, since it's the best spell? Runner's choice for donation."
Well, we did leave the red candle in Palace 1 for you, Cantaloupe.
That was mean. That's a little in-joke between the Zelda 2 runners. As I'm casting the fairy spell, actually getting by these spicy chickens on stairs is more difficult than you would think.
They have the high ground. Don't try it.
Easy to take a lot of damage there, so I spend some of my magic to skip by them.
And he's not going back for the red jar. There's a 50-50 shot at a red jar in that statue.
So this might be the second most dangerous room in the game.
Ooh, that was a nasty beam pattern.
Go away.
This is fine. Everything's fine. He's only going to be chasing me through here because I actually gave him a block to actually jump up here.
The jukes!
That is not the way you want to do that room. I'm actually pretty lucky I lived through it.
That definitely looked way better than it would have if you would have gotten it the right way, though.
Yeah.
It was better for us.
That knight's name is Scott Bakula.
He made a quantum leap at Error's face. Scott Bakula's twin brother, Elder Scott.
Those guys, part of why they're so dangerous is they can fire beams at many different heights, and sometimes you can't actually tell how to block them, whether it's high or low.
Oh, this pattern is terrible.
Yeah, they are just not being friendly this run at all.
Glad to be done with that guy. Go
Look
away.
at how many beams are on screen. It's unreal.
So yeah, Link's hitbox. You know how I was killing the Iron Knuckles by hitting them in the visor? Link actually has that same weakness. It's just that most enemies can't take advantage of it. So we're getting close to the final two bosses of the game. And one of them is Thunderbird. And you need a certain spell called Thunder to beat him. And as I open up my spell list, I don't have that. Also say hi to the cross-eyed big bot. So I'm going to have to find an alternate route by him. So, fairy spell is broken. And if you fairy in the HUD, it wraps around and you actually fall. And we just skip Thunderbird. And we're on the Dark Link. So, Dark Link, he's usually really hard if you try and real fight him, but we're just going to stand in the corner and stab him a whole bunch of times.
We've recently found some manipulations to make it even faster, and Error's using those pretty well.
And
nice.
time.
That's a good time.
What was my time?
49:31.
That's a PB.
Is it? Wow.
Nice.
PB on marathon strats. World record was, I think, 49:07 on not marathon strats. So I'm coming for you, Simple. But we saved Zelda. We're a real hero. And we're going to lower the curtain for an awkward hug. Aww. But that's Zelda 2. Thanks for watching. Stay for the Link's Awakening race.